What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel, where today we're returning to the Need for Speed franchise with the original Most Wanted. And I would say that for me, like many others out there, uh, it would have to be considered when discussing my formative street racing experiences. It would have to be this, Carbon, Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix, and Tokyo Drift. But the real question here is it still the classic that we all remember it being? Well, story-wise, I would say that it's definitely trying to be a little bit more narratively driven and cinematic. But with that comes this very sort of 2005 movie feel in its cutscenes. And whether that is a pro or a con obviously depends on the person. But beyond that, it's still very much the run-of-the-mill typical Need for Speed plot structure, right? New guy comes to town, bursts onto the street racing scene there, and ruffles some feathers on his way up the ladder, with the primary difference this time around being that Razor steals your car and makes it that much more personal, which to an 11-year-old kid is probably about the low-down dirtiest thing that son of a whore could possibly do. And while on that topic, let's discuss Razor for a minute, shall we? Because the game opens up with you challenging him for his 15th spot on the blacklist a couple days after your arrival. And I'm not going to dispute that it obviously has to take some level of skill to even be placed on this list, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't change the fact that he is only number 15 at the bottom of the list. And there is nary a shred of confidence in this man when it comes to defending his placement and sending the new guy packing. And this is obvious because this is, if I recall correctly, your first time meeting in a race. And yet he feels that he has to cheat in order to beat you. And then to add insult to injury, the only reason that he is able to climb the list and maintain that top spot is through using your car while you're in jail. So I guess in true Need for Speed fashion, we are still not dealing with the strongest villain here, in my opinion. But gameplay-wise, I would say it's still everything we remember it being. It's got the open world map feel of an Underground 2, mixed with kind of the high-octane, chaotic energy of the police chases that we might find in a Hot Pursuit game. Mechanically, however, is where I think it's starting to show a bit of its age. I can't remember off the top of my head if I've mentioned this or talked about it before, but it really feels like a game where you don't win, you don't succeed until it decides that you can. And this feeling was exceptionally noticeable when it comes to the boss races. Let's just say that I did 3 attempts, right? 3 attempts of relatively decent racing where they put up a challenge and I got my ass handed to me. Alright, no harm, no foul. It's whatever. But then on the 4th go around, just randomly, for reasons unbeknownst to me, all of a sudden they're making mistakes that they wouldn't otherwise make, and having a tough time recovering from them, thereby practically handing me the race on a silver platter. And this was a pretty consistent behavior from all of the Blacklist members in some point or another. Um, and just speaking of the randomness, just in general, the general gameplay experience, there would be times where I would be moving and a grooving right along, weaving in and out of traffic, four wheels on the ground, no problem whatsoever. And then there would be times where the game would just decide, oh, well, you're going to be a magnet for absolute each and every civilian vehicle that you come across. And they're going to do the world's stupidest things, like randomly pulling out in front of you, or you're going to bump them when they're in front of you, and they're just going to stomp on their brakes and come to a dead stop. Oh, and by the way, you know that turn that you've made 100 times at this point? Well, I've decided this time around that you're going just a bit too fast, or you've hit the curb wrong, and now you're completely sideways driving on your door. And of course, there's room for argument in saying that at that point in the game, your cars are souped up to such a point where you're clipping along at good rates of speed, and things like that are just going to happen. I'm not going to argue that point. I'm just saying that when fortune decides it's not going to smile upon you, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Um, I don't think that the handling model in this game feels as good as it once did, nor do I think that the speed breaker, slow-mo mechanic, bullet time, whatever you want to call it, is as an effective tool as it once was. Like, I remember as a kid being able to flip this thing on and just do the most Fast and the Furious action movie type shit ever. And, obviously it still has its time and its place and its uses, right? Does it help you get around nuisance traffic? Sure. Does it help you get out of a pinch with the cops? Absolutely. But in my experience with it, I don't recall a time when it gave me any real distinct advantage over the AI in a race. But I would say that honestly, the most disappointing element to Most Wanted after all these years would have to be the customization options, especially compared to something like Underground 2. It definitely feels like a monumentous step backwards. And, I was able to explain it in my head by saying, we're not in the underground anymore, and this is a completely different racing scene. The game takes place entirely in the daylight, so maybe there's not a need for that much. Maybe there's something to it with that type of stuff, but it is definitely noticeable. At the end of the day, though, to answer the question, does it hold up? Yes. I just think that it's a case where I was better at it when I was 12. And look, good, bad, or otherwise, I've got memories and experiences with this game that I wouldn't trade for the world. They're always going to be treasured. They're always going to be close to my heart. And that's what makes this game one of my favorites for probably the rest of my life. But I think that is going to wrap this video up, guys. So as always, thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one.